Chapter 13, Where My Sword Points, 2. 3 days passed, and Guangdu hadn't returned. By now, he might have been captured and tortured, or his corpse might already be buried in the ground. But I wasn't worried. I ate my meals, and in my spare time, I went to the forest behind the inn to practice the White Moon sword arts. I didn't pay attention to any circulating rumors. After 3 days of intense training, I now looked like someone who had been practicing the White Moon sword arts for quite some time. As I practiced a martial art other than my own exclusive technique for the first time in a long while, I noticed some new things. The biggest realization was my inertia towards martial arts. Surprisingly, I had become complacent. The shadow of this complacency was too deep to simply attribute it to my long-standing position as an absolute being. Certainly, my skills were effective in my era. At least, no one I faced could block my sword. But as I practiced this time, a thought suddenly struck me. Wasn't that limited only to the era I lived in? There might be masters against whom my martial arts wouldn't work, who hadn't been born yet, or who were hidden in obscurity. After reaching the position of the world's greatest, I only thought about the opponents in front of me and believed that was everything. I should have made efforts to transcend the era. I should have found meaning in the unseen beyond what was visible. Perhaps this inertia had prevented me from reaching the realm of the mind sword. After all, the realm of the mind sword was an absolute state that transcended eras. Why couldn't I think like this back then? Guangdu didn't betray my trust. On the morning of the 4th day, he appeared between the curtains at the inn's entrance. The moment I saw him, I couldn't help but smile. He had appeared in an unexpected form. He was wearing martial arts attire like those worn by martial artists, with a sword at his waist, and even had on a wide-brimmed hat and a windbreaker. From his appearance alone, he looked every bit a martial artist. He sat down across from me as if we had arranged it. The world is one family, meeting like this must be fate. Let's have a drink. Oh, but you said that a world is one family thing was nonsense, right? Having fun. When I asked with a smile, Guangdu sighed. Fun? I almost died of fear. What happened? Guangdu lowered his voice. Have you heard of the Bloodhound? Bloodhound? I had never heard of such a person. I shook my head and asked, what kind of person is it? I don't know either. I only found out the name. The young miner faction is secretly gathering vagabonds through someone called the Bloodhound. Vagabonds? Yes. It seems they've already gathered dozens. Their intention to attack us is certain. Why are you so sure? While secretly gathering vagabonds, they are spreading a separate rumor. That you tried to rape a woman, and Yang Jiagang was ambushed while trying to stop you. Everyone will believe it. I've done so many trashy things in the past, after all. Even so, that's too much. What are they thinking? You may have beaten people up, but you weren't the kind of trash who would rape women. Rumors tend to get exaggerated. Why are you so calm? Aren't you angry? I am angry. But will my anger solve the problem? And later, when it's revealed to be a false rumor, those who believed it will feel sorry and give me a better evaluation. That's for later. Time passes quickly. You sound like an old man when you talk like that. I smiled wryly. But how did you find out about this? Did you infiltrate disguised as a vagabond? That must have been quite dangerous. No. No. The gathering of vagabonds is being done in utmost secrecy. I found out about it later. Then how did you find out? I found out through a maid from the young miner faction. One of the maids from the young miner faction fell for me. You know how well I understand those girls, right? I, who had been staring blankly, burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Guangdu's choice was excellent. He approached using the method he was best at. I was lucky. There's been a strange rumor circulating among the maids lately. That Yang Jiagang cruelly killed a woman who was serving him. So everyone's feelings towards the young father and son weren't good. He spoke as if it was easy to find out because of this, but luck is also a skill. If he hadn't found the right method, such luck wouldn't have followed. Through her, I heard the name Bloodhound and learned that they were gathering vagabonds. I bought all this to try to infiltrate among the vagabonds and find out more, but when I actually tried, I was too scared to do it. I looked at Guangdu with fresh eyes. It was a good choice. Guangdu knows how to do things and also instinctively knows how to avoid danger. He passes. Guangdu is too good to be just sweeping the yard. At first, I was so scared and nervous, but as I did it, I felt a sense of accomplishment for achieving something. It was the most thrilling feeling I've ever had in my life. But did I do well? You did much better than I expected. Guangdu wore a satisfied expression. And I confirmed a new fact this time. What? Unexpectedly, this face of mine works on women. The word unexpectedly is actually a humble expression. Guangdu had quite a decent appearance, was eloquent, and above all, had a kind nature. There are women with peculiar tastes, after all. Hee, you're jealous. If you think about who I've given up recently, you shouldn't say that. I'll say it again, you shouldn't give up on Miss Song. You'll never meet such a beautiful woman again. Even if her temper is bad, just endure it. I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not interested in Song Warren right now. I didn't have the luxury of spending time dating. By the way, shouldn't we return immediately? We should go and inform the master. No. We're not going back. If we don't go back, we need to finish this matter. Guangdu blinked at me. It's the expression he usually makes when he's baffled by my words or reactions. I find this moment the most amusing. The we you just mentioned doesn't happen to refer to the good-for-nothing young Master Biok of the Biok clan Sword Manor and the crazy head who first wore a sword 3 days ago after just sweeping the yard, does it? If by we you mean the matured young Master Biok of the Biok clan Sword Manor and the brilliant head who successfully completed his mission and returned, then yes, that's right. Finally, Guangdu let out a long sigh and said, "Since it might be the last, order me the most expensive wine." He knows well how dangerous this situation is. But he doesn't try to persuade me to go back. While he might trust me, this part reveals Guangdu's temperament. In the choice between advancing or retreating in a difficult and dangerous situation, he's the type to choose to advance. We can't say definitively which is right. This temperament often dresses up recklessness as courage. Anyway, I didn't dislike this aspect of Guangdu, perhaps because I too have lived my entire life without retreating. So what do you plan to do? If the reason for gathering vagabonds is to attack us, I'll kill everyone involved. There's only one reason a martial arts sect secretly gathers vagabonds. When they want to destroy another sect. And very cruelly at that. When vagabonds get involved in fights, things get very dirty. They're the ones who rape wives in front of their husbands. Guangdu, who had been quietly staring at me, spoke with a trembling voice. You're serious? I silently nodded. When I talk about life and death, I'm always serious. Guangdu's face flushed, stimulated. What should I do now? I smiled and stood up. Wait here. Just as I waited for you. What are you planning to do alone? I can't answer him. Because from now on, it's time for me to become who I was in my past life. Chapter 14, Where My Sword Points, 3. You bitch. Come here and suck it. Yang Jiagang exuded a neurotic killing intent. It was even more malicious than when his body was healthy. The maid approached him, trembling. She recalled the maid who had supposedly died with her throat torn out. Perhaps she was killed for refusing to do this? But she really didn't want to. She didn't even want to look at that hideous thing. Should I rip your crotch apart? Do you look down on me too? Who? You whore. No, young master. She prostrated herself on the spot. Tears dripped onto the floor. Please forgive me. I have someone I'm going to marry. She remembered the face of the man she had promised to marry next year. His face when he was so happy, saying he had saved enough money to rent a small room, while working hard at a shop in the marketplace. When she heard the rumor that the previous maid had died, she should have eloped with him. She had even considered it. But it wasn't easy to leave a place she had lived all her life overnight. She couldn't do it for his sake either, as he had just settled down. Should I call him here? Are you feeling empty without a man? Gasp! The maid raised her head. Yang Jiagang's face was gleaming with cruelty. Seeing his snake-like eyes that seemed capable of anything to torment others, she cried out. No. Please don't do that. Then come here. Yang Jiagang, being bedridden, couldn't bear the rising sexual urge. His mind was filled only with the desire to rape and kill someone. The woman staggered towards him. Her tear-stained face only stimulated Yang Jiagang's lust further. Hurry, do it! The woman bowed her head and opened her mouth. Her whole body trembled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Endless tears flowed from her tightly shut eyes. It was at that moment. Someone covered her mouth from behind. Not to prevent her from screaming, but to gently close her mouth. She could tell that this touch meant her no harm. Not just because it was so kind and gentle. It was because Yang Jiagang had opened his eyes wide and spat out a curse. You bastard! The hand that had covered the woman's mouth now covered her eyes. The next moment. Swish! Along with the sound of a cool breeze. Slash! Ah! From the terrible scream that came out as if squeezed, the woman could tell. That Yang Jiagang's thing had been cut off. Splash! The sound of blood gushing out for a moment. Thud! Crack! This time, she heard the sound of a sword piercing flesh and hitting bone. Ugh! Before the scream could fully emerge, again. Stab! The sound of flesh tearing was followed by a muffled scream. The woman learned for the first time that such diverse screams could come from one person. NNGH. Each time the sword was thrust in and pulled out, a pain-filled groan inevitably followed. Please? In response to Yang Jiagang's plea, a cold voice from behind. Then you should have listened when this child begged to please. The moment the words ended. Stab! 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 The sound of the sword tearing flesh was heard repeatedly. It was truly the sound of being hacked to pieces. The only reason the woman could bear this terrible sound was that the owner of the screams with each stab was Yang Jiagang. The scream stopped, and so did the butchery. As the person behind her was still covering her eyes, the woman couldn't see the situation unfolding before her. But she could tell that Yang Jiagang was no longer of this world. Then a low voice near her ear. Child. Unlike when dealing with Yang Jiagang, the tone was so gentle that she almost responded with yes. Not all men in this world are like this. You might get bitten by a mad dog in life. But that doesn't mean you should treat all dogs as mad, right? So forget everything that happened today and live happily with your fiancé. It was such a benevolent and gentle speech. It was a young voice, but it sounded like a grandfather speaking to his granddaughter. As soon as those words ended, sleep overcame her. It was due to the natural touch that had suppressed her acupoints without her knowing. As she was gently laid on the floor, she could hear the last words as if in a dream. You won't be harmed for being here. Because everyone who would do so will die today. Please reconsider, faction leader. If we really attack the Biok clan Sword Manor, we'll incur the wrath of the whole Gango. The person making this earnest request was Zhong Yo, the deputy faction leader of the Young Minor faction. He had only recently learned about what was happening. Wrath? Did you just say wrath? Faction leader. My son nearly died. And you dare say such things? Who exactly would be angry? Young Master Yang. He couldn't continue to say that he had it coming. Nor could he say not to cover the sky with one's palm. Because Yang Jiaqiol was glaring at him with murderous eyes. Please reconsider. TSK. You've become so soft. Faction leader. Zhong Yo didn't think he had lived by upholding righteousness. He considered himself somewhere between a chivalrous man and a villain, moderately tainted by the secular world. No, to be honest, he was closer to evil. He had turned a blind eye to the faction leader's misdeeds several times. But even evil has its limits, and this was beyond the pale. How could anyone in their right mind think of hiring vagabonds to wipe out an entire sect just because their child got beaten up? Please think it over carefully. At that moment, another man in the room spoke up. He was the bloodhound that Yang Jiaqiol had called. Who was the bloodhound? He could be described in one simple line. A man who would kill even his own parents and children for money. One might even think that he had exchanged his supposedly long-dead wife and children for money. However, Yang Jiaqiol called him whenever he needed something handled discreetly. His efficiency in handling matters was as certain as his greed. You'll need to pay me more. I've heard that the reputation of their clan leader is quite good. Since when did you care about the reputation of the person you're killing? As I age, it naturally becomes so. Perhaps I'm maturing. How much more are you asking for? I'll need at least 20,000 Niang. It's not that you've matured with age, your greed has just grown. Just tell me yes or no. We're not in a relationship to exchange jokes, are we? In the end, he agreed to pay 20,000 Nyang, twice the original amount. In exchange, the Bloodhound promised to provide a scapegoat to take the blame for this incident. He promised to use a suitable vagabond to make it look like he and his comrades had annihilated the Bayok clan sword manor. They decided to use Bayok Ri Dan. The plan was to spread a rumor that he had raped a woman, and a vagabond, who was the woman's lover, had massacred them in revenge. They would stage it so that the vagabond had committed suicide at the scene after the massacre. To this end, they were spreading rumors that Bayok Ri Dan had raped a woman. Overnight, the Bayok clan sword manor would become a trash sect deserving annihilation, and Yang Jiagang would become a righteous man injured while trying to prevent it. This is the power of money. Everything was going smoothly until Deputy Faction Leader Zhong Yo found out at the last moment. They had proceeded in secret because they were certain he would try to stop it. The Bloodhound, who had been listening, blurted out. "Why are you pretending to be so good? You don't even look that virtuous." Zhong Yo frowned at him. "This is none of your business." A tense atmosphere hung between the two. The Bloodhound smirked, diffusing the tension. It wasn't that he was intimidated, but more of a "why bother with the likes of you" attitude. How narrow-minded. Then, turning to Yang Jiaqiul, he said, "Such matters should be dealt with swiftly and then we should withdraw. As you know, vagabonds have no sense of belonging. If we delay, secrets tend to leak. If you don't give a definitive answer now, I'll disband them immediately. Of course, you won't get the deposit back. That won't be necessary. We'll proceed as planned." After making that clear, he tried to persuade Zhong Yo. Although the Bayok clan sword manor's fortunes have declined, they still wield influence in many places. If we take over all those areas, we can double the power of our main branch. If that happens, they would gain hundreds of thousands of Nyang in profits in the long run. 20,000 Nyang would be nothing in comparison. The Bayok clan sword manor's influence in the Shandong region is great because the martial artists here deeply trust faction leader Bayok. At this, Yang Jiaqiul showed an annoyed expression. "It sounds like you're saying my character is inferior to that man's. That's not what I meant. Trust? There's no such thing in this martial world. There are only two things that exist in this world: the strong and the weak. The strong rule and the weak are ruled. The strong survive and the weak die." Zhong Yo said nothing. He had long known that his master was greedy. But he didn't know it was such ugly greed. "If you attack the Bayok clan sword manor, I will no longer serve you, faction leader." This was his last card. He had been with the young miner faction for 20 years. They had been through all sorts of things together. He could assert with certainty that without him, the young miner faction wouldn't have grown this much. He thought that if he went this far to dissuade him, he would eventually give up, albeit reluctantly. But Yang Jiaqiul's response was ruthless. "How dare you impose such conditions? Get out before I kill you with one strike." Zhong Yo felt his breath catch. Get out before he kills him? Faced with such unprecedented verbal abuse, a storm of disappointment swept over him. What have I been living for all this time? More than hatred towards him, anger at his own foolishness took precedence. Feeling like he might cry if he stayed any longer, he stood up. "Stay in seclusion until I call for you again." He left the room without answering. He heard the Bloodhound's giggling laughter from behind. There shouldn't be anyone coming out of the Bayok clan sword manor's gates that day. "Don't worry. I'll wipe out not just those with the Bayok surname, but even the dogs they raise." Hearing this conversation before the door closed, Zhong Yo clenched his fists. He really wanted to rush back in and beat those two to death. Then he would die. This is the limit. The limit of the moral sense and capacity that a person like him could exert. But he had no intention of staying in this place devoid of all human feeling. After this incident, Yang Jiaqiul would try to appease him again with sweet words. He would leave before that. Because later, he would be discarded even more pitifully. Damn it! I wanted to raise the young miner faction to be the greatest faction under the heavens. As he was walking heavily, burdened by the pain of having to leave the place he had devoted his life to, he felt an inexplicable sense of unease. When he raised his head, he saw a young man sitting on the roof. The blood dripping from the sword he was dangling formed a stark contrast against the blue sky spread out behind him. "Who are you? Who else?" "It was me." Zhong Yo reflexively tried to draw his sword. Are you going to act like an idiot until the very end? Startled by my words, he stopped his action. Do you want to end your life dying while trying to protect such a person? A heavy silence descended between us, as if pressing down. Chapter 15, Where My Sword Points, 4. I was overwhelming Zhongye with my aura. He didn't recognize me. Well, even if he had seen me once before, it would have been impossible to associate the current look in my eyes and my aura with the good-for-nothing of the Biok sword family. Did you enter the martial world to serve such people? I could sense his wavering in his trembling eyes. I leaped down nimbly. Zhongye was startled by my agile movement. Regardless of inner energy, there's a way to showcase one's physical prowess. I deliberately displayed the essence of my movement technique, and Zhongye had the skill to recognize it. Zhongye's gaze turned towards the entrance of the courtyard. The guards at the entrance were sitting slumped against the wall with their heads bowed. Are they dead? I shook my head. I had merely suppressed their acupoints to put them to sleep. Wait here. This will be the moment your life changes. Without waiting for Zhongye's response, I opened the door and entered. He might have many thoughts, but he would ultimately wait. If not, he would have drawn his sword already. Yang Jiaqiol and the Bloodhound were startled when I opened the door and entered. You? Yang Jiaqiol recognized me. No matter how much my aura had changed, he couldn't fail to recognize the one who had beaten his son to a pulp just the other day. Yes, it's me. Me? What insolent way of speaking is this? Yang Jiaqiol frowned and glared at me coldly, but my following words were even colder. You, who ordered the annihilation of the family of someone you once called brother, dare to speak of manners? What kind of person are you? Struck at his core, Yang Jiaqiol was speechless. Instead, he exuded a fierce aura as if he might rush at me and strike at any moment. But he was cautious. He seemed unable to comprehend the situation no matter how he thought about it. How I had gotten this far, and why I was so confident. He spoke to the Bloodhound as if giving an order. Get rid of him. He once again proved that he was someone who thoroughly looked out for himself first in any situation. He was wary of me. So, could I really kill Yang Jiaqiol? With just 5 years of inner energy and Biok Ri down still unrefined body? My answer was yes. If I had concluded that it would be difficult or that there were variables, I wouldn't be here. But I was confident I could kill them. Of course, if it came down to a battle of inner energy or a prolonged fight, I would be at a disadvantage. But I had no intention of letting that happen. The decisively advantageous point was that the opponent didn't know my true nature. When I visited the Biok clan sword manor before, I felt it while watching Yang Jiaqiol putting on airs with his hands behind his back. He had grown rusty. If he were truly the most skilled martial artist in Shandong, he might be difficult to deal with. But he was merely the head of the largest organization in Shandong. Although both bore the modifier number 1, there was a huge difference between the two. When was the last time Yang Jiaqiol had experienced real combat? A year ago? 2 years ago? It might have been over 10 years. The larger the organization, the further its leader tends to be from actual combat. Rather, that Bloodhound fellow might be the more dangerous one. Just as Yang Jiaqiol had, the Bloodhound also showed once again what kind of person he was. I'll add 5,000 Niang. Are you mad? He's one of those we need to kill anyway. Not here. 5,000 Niang is too much for killing just one youngster. Then do it yourself. Surely such a youngster is no match for the faction leader. The Bloodhound folded his arms and took a step back. Damn it! Yang Jiaqiol glared at me again. He couldn't discern anything from me. He must be wondering why he was hesitant to act when I should be no match for him. In any case, while he might lack in actual combat experience, his instinct for detecting danger was still alive. Fine. I'll give you 5,000 Niang. Only then did the Bloodhound step forward with a smirk. Thanks, kid. Contrary to his words, the Bloodhound wasn't letting his guard down. Having lived as a vagabond, he sensed the danger I exuded even faster than Yang Jiaqiol. He just judged that the danger wasn't enough to harm him. I wasn't letting my guard down either. This was the moment I was about to engage in my first proper fight since reincarnating. His weapon was an iron rod about the length of an adult's forearm. Whoosh! Whoosh! He swung the iron rod quickly and shortly twice, then immediately unleashed a deadly attack. Bang! Ba-ba-ba bang. Bang. The iron rod struck the air with terrifying force. If hit, it would have enough power to crush bones. The iron rod grazed my shoulder by a hair's breadth. Certainly, Bayok Ridan's body was slow. If I hadn't predicted where the attack would come from by observing the bloodhound's movements, I would have been finished with this one attack. In this fight, it wasn't Bayok Ridan's body fighting, but my experience. The continuously flying iron rod created a tension where a single mistake could lead to death. Then, from deep within my chest, an emotion surged up like lava. It was fighting spirit. Bang! This time, I nearly had my head split open. Even in this perilous situation, I was savoring the joy of fighting after a long time. I could feel it anew. I was truly someone who loved fighting. It was because I was such a person that I had risen to the position of the world's greatest. My later years without fights had been so tedious. Crash! Crunch! The objects in the room were smashed to pieces. The corners of Yang Jiaqiol's mouth, who was watching, curled up. It probably looked like I was being overwhelmed one-sidedly, so he must be thinking the bloodhound would win. He might be regretting the 5,000 Niang, thinking he should have handled it himself if he had known it would be like this. The bloodhound paused his attack for a moment. "You little rat. You're quite good at dodging." It was a statement full of confidence in victory and enjoying the leisure. But while it was leisure for him, it was an opening for me. This moment of opening might have been a split second for him, but it was an eternity for me. My sword flashed in the air. Swish! Swoosh! Two different sounds of air being cut by the sword. The bloodhound's movement stopped. Rustle! The bloodhound's clothes were cut diagonally. A red line was visible inside. Rustle! This time, his clothes were cut diagonally in the opposite direction. Again, a red line was drawn. A red tilted X engraved on his chest. I stepped slightly to the side. The next moment. Splash! The red line split open and blood gushed out in the shape of the wounds. It was the first form of the soul-reaping Azura sword technique, instant killing, that had been unleashed. Originally, his body would have been shattered into pieces. But because I only used 3 years of inner energy, this was the extent of its power. After spewing out an enormous amount of blood, the bloodhound collapsed. Thud! He was already dead before hitting the floor. I turned my head to look at where the remaining 2 years of inner energy had been used. Yang Jiaqiol was staring at the bloodhound's death with a shocked face. But soon he felt his chest getting hot and lowered his head. Blood spreading from his chest was dyeing his white clothes red. Behind the torn clothes, there was a spiral-shaped wound on his chest. It was the trace left by the second form, truth-seeking person. I had divided my 5 years of inner energy in 2, sending 3 years of inner energy with instant killing towards the bloodhound, and 2 years of inner energy with truth-seeking person towards Yang Jiaqiol. So now I had not even a handful of inner energy left. I was defenseless until I could perform breathing exercises to replenish my inner energy, but Yang Jiaqiol was struggling to save himself, let alone seize an opportunity. Yang Jiaqiol coughed up a mouthful of dark red blood. He probably never dreamed that I, who seemed to be overwhelmed one-sidedly by the bloodhound, would attack him. Even if he had been on guard, it would have been difficult to avoid this attack. If he hadn't instinctively twisted his body at the last moment, he would have died instantly. The blood flowing from his mouth and chest was soaking the floor. He had probably never seen so much blood coming out of his own body before. Save me! I retrieved my sword and picked up the iron rod that had fallen to the floor. Yang Jiaqiol had suffered a fatal injury, but he was still sharp. You're planning to make it look like the bloodhound and I fought each other. Not exactly. It will be that this man killed you and ran away. Yang Jiaqiol's eyes filled with despair. If you spare me, I'll do anything. Ignoring his plea, I approached, and he staggered towards one side of the wall. Wait. Please? Just a moment. He hurriedly touched several mechanisms, and the wall rotated to reveal a safe. If you spare me, I'll give you everything in here. Still setting conditions. You're quite composed. I strode forward and raised the iron rod towards his head. If you push someone without giving them time to think, the safe often opens more easily. Yang Jiaqiol's hands moved frantically. Because of his self-serving nature, this life-threatening situation paralyzed all his reason. His only thought was to survive by any means necessary. Indeed, after waiting for just a brief moment, the safe door opened without him even managing to set a proper condition. Of course, even if he had, it wouldn't have worked. Promissory notes and gold items were piled up inside the safe. Leaning painfully against the wall, he spoke desperately. If you dispose of everything, it's worth over 30,000 Niang. So please? I looked at him. His eyes were filled with an earnest desire to live. On the other hand, the coldness in my eyes was enough to extinguish that heat. You said earlier, didn't you? That in this martial world, there are only two types, the strong and the weak. The strong survive, and the weak die. It was what he had said to Zhong Yo earlier. Today, it seems you're the weak one. Thwack! I swung the club mercilessly, smashing his head. With a splattering sound, his head was crushed like a watermelon. I'm not merciful enough to spare someone who tried to annihilate my family. Thud! I struck his chest again with the iron rod. His ribs shattered, erasing the wound left by my truth-seeking person. This time, I struck the bloodhound's chest, erasing the traces. Once you've laid hands on something, you need to handle it thoroughly. As I expected, Zhong Yo hadn't left and was standing outside until the fight ended. Come in. He entered cautiously. He flinched at the scene inside, but as if he had expected it to some extent, he wasn't completely shocked. I swept everything from inside the safe into a leather bag at the edge and slung it over my shoulder. The bloodhound killed your faction leader and his son, stole the money, and ran away. Zhong Yo looked down at the bloodhound's corpse and swallowed hard. I am certain. Zhong Yo will dispose of the bloodhound's corpse and report it that way to the sect members. Not because he values his life. It's because of the words I'm about to say. These very words that will completely change his fate. What he had been hoping for while waiting outside. From now on, you are the new faction leader of the Young Miner faction. Chapter 16, Back to Everyday Life, 1. When I returned to the inn after disposing of all the gold items from the safe, Guangdu was sitting at the table. As our eyes met when I entered, he stared blankly for a moment before jumping up. I thought he would express joy and rush towards me like a buffalo, but he ran out through the back door of the inn. Wait just a moment. Just then, a servant passing by whispered to me. This is his first meal since you left, young master. He waited all night without sleeping. Looking at the table where he had been sitting, I saw he had ordered the cheapest food to save money. Even that had gone cold without a single chopstick touching it. I ordered some dishes that Guangdu would like from the servant. A little while later, Guangdu returned. His eyes were red. It seems he couldn't control the emotions that welled up when he saw me and had shed tears. Add a bowl of rice here too. I wasn't hungry, but I ordered it for him. He probably wouldn't be able to eat properly alone. You fool, how could you eat after sending the young master into danger? If you don't eat regularly, you'll get an upset stomach. And let's be clear, who sent who? I'm hungry, let's eat. With that, we finished all the newly arrived dishes and rice. Guangdu rubbed his full belly and said, This is nice. I'm glad. I meant it sincerely. Eating such delicious food and rubbing a full belly, I felt I had nothing to envy in the world. Suddenly, my eyes fell on the leather bag containing the promissory notes I had set aside. A person's stomach is satisfied with just one meal like this, yet young Jiaqiao lost everything due to his excessive greed. Oh, right, it's not true, is it? What? The rumor that the bloodhound killed the young faction leader and ran away with all the wealth. The warriors who came earlier were talking about it. It's not true, right? Oh? That happened. It's not true, right? You didn't do it, did you, young master? Didn't they say the bloodhound did it? Right? Of course, that must be it. How could you possibly defeat the young faction leader and the bloodhound? Yes, it must be just a coincidence. You happened to go there, and such an incident occurred first? But, bullshit. There's no way such a coincidence could happen. What exactly did you do? I told you I would kill them. Good heavens. Guangdu covered his mouth with a frightened expression. You did it yourself, young master. Yes. With my own hands. Then the wealth that the bloodhound supposedly stole, did you steal it? Steal? It's compensation. Compensation. He had ordered the deaths of our parents, you and me, and everyone in our family. He was trying to annihilate us and take everything our family owned. I wanted to take everything from him. I meant it sincerely. I really wanted to take even the last chopstick from his kitchen, but realistically, I couldn't. How much did you bring? No, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Why? I'll tell you if you're curious. No. It's scary. They say those who know too many secrets are the first to die. Ha ha ha. Don't laugh like that. It's creepy. When I converted everything from the safe into money, it amounted to exactly 32,000 Nyang. If I had stayed longer at the Yang Minor faction and sold off various things, I could have claimed much more money, but I didn't. It's best to just leave cleanly from here. If I got greedy, my existence might be revealed, and various side effects could occur. Before I left, Zhongyo realized that I was the good-for-nothing successor of the Biok clan Sword Manor. But he didn't dare to have a dismissive attitude towards me. Among the people he knew, there was no one who could kill Yang Jiaiqiu and the Bloodhound in one place. Rather, he feared me even more. He thought I was a hidden dragon who had been concealing my martial arts, and he swore loyalty. Of course, I'm not naive enough to believe this impulsive and desperate loyalty. It's enough to keep a proper distance and use it to some extent. Anyway, being deeply involved, he wouldn't reveal what I had done. Guangdu asked in a trembling voice. Did you really kill Yang Jiagang too? When I nodded, Guangdu's expression darkened slightly. Why? Do you feel sorry for him even after what he did to us? He was still young, wasn't he? 20 is not a child. And what does age have to do with right and wrong? Young or old, if you do something deserving of death, you should die. Even setting aside his attempt to kill me, what he did to the maids alone was enough to warrant death. That may be true, but he's kind-hearted. I like this goodness in Guangdu because I lived in a world where kindness becomes a weakness and goodness becomes foolishness. I like it even more. I didn't kill him because of you. That day, he tried to kill me. I just took my revenge. After easing any possible burden on his mind, I stood up. Come with me for a moment. I took Guangdu to the forest behind the inn. We walked for a while until we reached a secluded spot and faced each other. Looking around with a fearful face, Guangdu asked, "Is this the moment to leave final words? What if it is? Thank you for everything. Why thank someone who's trying to kill you?" Even so. Though it was a joke, Guangdu was half serious. Even if I were to kill him now, he was thankful. Guangdu. Yes, young master. From now on, I intend to teach you martial arts. Guangdu's face mixed with surprise and intense emotion. This might have been his most shocked reaction since meeting me. Not just pretend martial arts, but real martial arts. Are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. But the White Moon Sword Arts is an exclusive family technique. Of course, the martial art I'll teach you is a different one. One that you can learn. After pondering for a moment, Guangdu spoke. Even if I want to learn, isn't it too late for me to start martial arts? I'm 25 this year. Leave that to me. It's late, very late indeed. But I'm the one teaching. I can offset the disadvantage of late timing. Think carefully and answer. This decision will not only change your life but could also be a matter of life and death. Will you learn martial arts from me? Guangdu's deliberation wasn't long. I will learn. May I ask why you decided so? Of course, it's because of you, young master. As you changed, and after experiencing this incident. I don't know exactly what, but I felt I wanted to change too. Young master, I want to change like you. Let me ask one more thing. Yes. Why are you so kind to me? I used to be a trash person. Because there was a time before that. What? You were a good person when you were younger. You were kind to me too. There was an incident before. When I was 15 and you were 10. I was very sick then. I lost consciousness due to high fever. When I barely regained consciousness and opened my eyes, you were placing a cool cloth on my forehead. I still can't forget your worried gaze at that time. Neither before nor after has anyone ever given me such a sincere look. You're a dull fellow. Living bound by such a trivial thing. What's trivial to some can be unforgettable to others. Guangdu smiled brightly. To think that Biok Ri Dan, whom I vaguely thought was just trash, had such a time? It's somewhat unexpected. What kind of martial art will I be learning? I've lived my entire life as the world's greatest and as the alliance leader of the martial world. I know several decent martial arts. Among them, the martial art I will pass on to Guangdu is the 7 Forms of the Southern Sea. 1. The 7 Forms of the Southern Sea. Guangdu repeated those words several times. It was a martial art I thought of when I saw the sword Guangdu was carrying. It's relatively easy to learn compared to its power, and it's been out of practice for a long time, so few people in the martial world can recognize this martial art, which is an advantage. From now on, memorize the verses I'm about to teach you. First, I passed on the mental cultivation method of the 7 Forms of the Southern Sea. Guangdu was certainly intelligent. After repeating it a few times, he memorized the verses perfectly. You're smart. This much is normal. He seemed pleased with himself, smiling happily. Next, I explained about acupoints and inner energy, and taught him how to circulate energy using those verses. The intelligent Guangdu understood well what I actually taught him. For now, let's focus on practicing the mental cultivation method diligently. It will probably take at least 10 days to properly circulate energy. I'll teach you the forms later. Having never had a disciple in my past life, I've never formally taught anyone before. So I'm a bit nervous and excited. You can't become a master overnight. I suppose not. Even sweeping the yard requires experience. How do you feel right now? I feel good. Like I could fly. Don't forget this feeling. This very moment when you first learned martial arts. As I said this, I was recalling my own first time. That moving moment when I first learned martial arts. That day, so long ago but still vivid. It's often said that there are things you gain from teaching. In the process of teaching, the well of your heart widens and fills with clearer, deeper water. I wonder what I will gain as I teach Guangdu? But this might not be the right question to ask in this grateful situation, but when did you learn this martial art? I had a chance to learn it by chance in the past. Guangdu stared at me intently. He must have many questions: when, how, why. Give up, kid. Considering what you'll see and experience from now on, this is nothing. You are no longer my servant. From now on, you are my subordinate. Emotion flashed across Guangdu's face. So I'm your right hand now, young master. You could be, or you could be a pinky toenail. No, I'll be the right hand. I should be by your side, young master. I'll work hard to death to be that arm. Guangdu bowed deeply. I heard martial artists bow like this when they start learning martial arts. Yes, I accept your bow. I have no intention of taking Guangdu as a disciple. It's closer to teaching a subordinate a skill. Still, it's fine to accept a bow of gratitude. I achieved 3 things on this journey. I eliminated the future threat of the Yang Minor faction, gained a large sum of money, and most importantly, gained a loyal subordinate in Guangdu. Now, let's go home. Chapter 17, Back to Everyday Life, 2. When I returned home, news of the Yang Minor faction had already spread. It's hard to believe. Father seemed troubled by the fact that the Yang faction leader had tried to kill him and his family by mobilizing vagabonds. No matter how much trouble his son was in, he probably never imagined such a form of revenge. He was a much more evil man than we thought. If internal strife hadn't broken out between him and the Bloodhound, we could have faced great calamity. Father nodded silently at my words. In contrast, Mother couldn't hide her joy. Heaven has helped us. It's truly fortunate. Yes, Mother. At that moment, Father spoke abruptly. Still, we should repay the debt we owe to the Yang Minor faction. Yes. I had expected him to say that. He would consider it a debt to the Yang Minor faction, not to Yang Jiaqiu personally. But we won't have to repay it. I had already told Zhong Yo, the new faction leader, not to collect the debt. I had even suggested a specific way to refuse, saying they wouldn't take the money as a way of atoning for their attempt to attack us. If not in this way, being not a dull person, he would find some suitable excuse not to accept it. And this, I've read it well. I returned the secret manual of the White Moon Sword Arts to Father. How was your practice? I think I've made some progress. That's good. He probably didn't have high expectations after just a few days of practice, but he would find significance in the fact that I had changed. Mother looked at me with a smile. Son, Yes. Are you all right? A short question, but one loaded with meaning. While very happy about my change, she must also be quite worried. Of course. I'm better than ever. Good. I'll take my leave now. As I turn to leave, I look back at Father. I hope you won't be too disheartened by this incident. Father. Was it because he was being comforted by his son after a long time? A look of emotion flashed across Father's face. In fact, I was the one who was truly moved. It was the first time I had called him father. In my past life, I didn't have a father figure. My mother had raised me alone since I was young. So I had never called anyone father before. Go and rest. Yes, father. Once I said it out loud, it wasn't that difficult. Thus, I returned to my everyday life. I had two main tasks to do: taking care of myself and taking care of the family. I started with what I could do immediately. The next day, I went to see Seo Jung. Seo Jung, who was coming out after training the Sword Squad members, looked surprised to see me. What's the matter? The look in his eyes was gentler than before. He must be seeing me in a new light due to my recent actions, especially after I saved Guangdu from Yang Jiagang. Please accept this. What is this? What I handed over was 3,000 Niang. It was part of the 32,000 Niang I had brought back from Yang Jiaqiol. After checking the promissory note, he looked at me in shock. Where did this money come from? It's money I've been saving up. What? He seemed skeptical. It must have been hard to believe that someone like me, who had been living like a good-for-nothing, would have such money. I was saving it to give to a girl I liked. But when I spoke so naturally, Seo Jung was half convinced. Moreover, since I had used so much of the family's money, he might think I could have this much saved. That's why I chose the amount of 3,000 Niang, though I wanted to give more. Why are you giving this to me? Please use this money to reorganize the sword squads. Raise the monthly salaries you couldn't increase, and recruit new members. Seo Jung was even more surprised than when he received the money. The amount of 3,000 Niang was shocking, but the purpose I suggested for its use was even more so. Do you think we're here for money? I know you're not. But the families of the Sword Squad members shouldn't suffer because of money. Why are you giving this directly to me instead of to the master? I guess you wouldn't accept money from father. Seo Jung flinched. I had accurately guessed his inner thoughts. He is a deeply loyal person. Even if father gave him money to reorganize the squad, he would refuse, saying to pay off the family's debts first. That he could manage the Sword Squad somehow. You and the Sword Squad are the core of our main branch. If you and the Sword Squad fall, the main branch will fall with you. What are you saying? The core of the main branch is the master. Though he scolded me sternly, Seo Jung's face couldn't hide his emotion. Like my parents, he probably never expected to hear such words from this good-for-nothing, immature young master. Will you accept my intention? After pondering for a moment, Seo Jung finally nodded. Can you promise to use this money solely for the Sword Squad? As a man, and as a martial artist. I was asking this in case he might return it to father. I will. I bowed sincerely. Thank you very much, squad leader. As I turned to leave, Seo Jung spoke from behind. Danon. Yes. Thank you. I smiled at him. Like with Guangdu, there was no need to say much more to him. He would see a lot in the future. From the next day, the atmosphere in the Sword Squad became more lively. Although I wasn't part of the Sword Squad, I could feel it. The Sword Squad members I encountered greeted me with smiles. They had already liked me for the incident with Yang Jiagang, and now they learned that the money came from me. Knowing Seo Jung's personality, he wouldn't have hidden the source of the money. As the Sword Squad's atmosphere brightened, the whole household brightened. The content of the whispers about me also changed. At first, they thought my change was a prelude to a major incident, but now there was talk that I might have really changed. I heard they also posted a notice about recruiting new members for the Sword Squad. With 3,000 Niang, they couldn't expand much, but I heard they could increase by about 20 people. While increasing the fighting force was good, the most important thing was that morale had improved. For the first time in a long while, there was vigor in the Biok clan sword manor. When mother heard the news, she gave me an earful about where I got such a large sum of money, but in the end, she had to believe me. What else could she do when I was behaving so well these days? The next day, Mother invited the wives of nearby martial families and held a gathering after a long time. She apparently boasted about her son all at once, making up for lost time. Of course, she didn't forget to brag about how I had given money for the sword squad. The only difference was that it was presented as money I had saved for the sword squad, not for a woman. While taking care of family matters like this, I didn't neglect my physical training and martial arts practice. With wholehearted training, my body was gradually changing. The soft flesh was disappearing, replaced by firm muscles. The real problem, as expected, was inner energy. The highlight of the soul-reaping Azura sword technique I had learned lies in the last 3 forms. The issue is that the 4th form requires 1 Gapja, 60 years, of inner energy, the 5th form 2 Gapja, 120 years, and the 6th form 3 Gapja, 180 years. I set my immediate goal at 1 Gapja. I don't even hope for 2 or 3 Gapja. If I could just use the 4th form, Soul-Stealing Calamity, I would have a trump card. I could probably handle most experts with the first 3 forms, but you never know what might happen. I was circulating the Heavenly Martial Heart Guarding technique at all times except when sleeping, but the amount of inner energy accumulating was absolutely insufficient. The Heavenly Martial Heart Guarding technique can accumulate inner energy about 3 times faster than ordinary cultivation methods. It would take 20 years of just training to accumulate 1 Gapja of inner energy. There's only one solution now. Somehow, I need to break through the conception and governing vessels. If the conception and governing vessels are opened, the speed of inner energy accumulation will increase 3-fold again. Then, the time it takes to reach 1 Gapja would be reduced from 20 years to 7 years. With the current 5 years of inner energy, and considering that I would need to take an elixir to open the conception and governing vessels, plus the additional inner energy gained from that, I could potentially reach 1 Gapja of inner energy in as little as 2 or 3 years. I needed an elixir to help open the conception and governing vessels. I heard there was once an era when elixirs were abundant. But in the current era, elixirs are scarce. The fact that I could possess 4 Gapja of inner energy in my past life was only possible because I was the Alliance leader, and even then, it was due to the life and death battles against the evil sects and demonic cults. It would be ideal if I could obtain legendary elixirs like the Great Return Pill or the 10,000-year Snow Ginseng, but it was absolutely impossible with this money. Such elixirs are not only hard to find, but even if someone claims to sell them, they're traded for tens or hundreds of thousands of Niang, as the seller names the price. They're items that don't even appear on the market. Could I find the necessary elixir with 29,000 Niang? I thought it might be possible. The elixir I need just needs to help open the conception and governing vessels, and be able to fill about 10 years' worth of inner energy. I didn't know the price of elixirs because I had only consumed what was given to me and had never bought them myself. 29,000 Niang. Can I buy it with this? 2 days later, I was entering a building in Jinan. This is the Jinan branch of the black market. There's a saying in the martial world. If it's not in the black market, it doesn't exist in this martial world. It serves as a marketplace for trading martial world items. In the past, it dealt even in stolen goods, hence the name a black market, but in the current era, it has come out into the open, dealing only in items with clear origins. The person who played the biggest role in this was Commander-in-Chief Gal Sariang. He monitored the black market and collected various information. Sometimes, the flow of goods provided much more valuable information than what could be obtained through people. Anyway, thanks to that, I knew the black market well. Where it was located and how it operated. There were 3 black markets in Shandong, and the largest one was this Jinan branch. I had ridden here after saying I would be out for 2 or 3 days to get some fresh air. I thought about bringing Guangdu along to avoid boredom, but given the nature of the business, I decided it was better to leave him behind. When I told the guard at the entrance that I came to buy an elixir, he guided me to a well-decorated guest room in the inner courtyard. A maid came and served tea, then left, but I didn't touch the tea. During my time as the Alliance leader, I often received this question. What's the secret to surviving long in the martial world? My answer was always the same. Be careful in everything. Being careful should become a habit. I had once been subjected to endless assassination attempts. The most skilled assassins are those with patience that has reached the extreme. What they wait for is just one moment of carelessness. The 100th mistake you make thinking surely not, after doing well 99 times. You want to live long? Don't let your guard down until the very end. An old man in luxurious robes entered the room. I hear you came to buy an elixir. Chapter 18, The Rightful Owner of Elixir, 1. I could sense the old man's expertise from his aura. Though I couldn't assess him as accurately and keenly as before, I could get a rough idea. The old man was likely the person in charge here, or someone with a comparable position. After all, among the various martial world items sold here, elixirs would be the most valuable. What kind? Pills? Herbs? Pellets? Any kind will do. Are you running an errand? The old man only heard my voice because I had covered my face with a wide-brimmed hat. In fact, I had slightly altered my voice. It was best to conduct such business in secret. In my early days as the Alliance leader, I often had to wear human skin masks. That's when I learned how to modulate my voice. Thanks to that, I could produce several different voices. I was using one of those voices now. No. A capable young man, I see. Well then, have you been here before? No. Despite my brief answers, the old man kept asking questions. I guessed why he kept throwing questions at me. In the past, we used to assess people by exchanging such conversations. The black market was a brutal place back then. Both customers and the market itself were dangerous. This old man, trying to assess me through various conversations, must have been working here for a long time. I answered all his miscellaneous questions without showing any dislike. Although my answers were brief, the old man seemed satisfied. You have manners, unlike most young people these days. In truth, I hadn't answered everything just to hear such praise. I was considering future visits, now that I had initiated a transaction. You're quite lucky, young man. No elixirs have come into our branch for the past 6 months. It seems elixirs are truly scarce in this era. But as luck would have it, an elixir came in just 2 days ago. What kind is it? It's the 1000-year broken young herb, 1. The 1000-year broken young herb. Known to provide 10 to 15 years of inner energy, it was exactly what I wanted. How much? 44,000 Niang. Damn it! It was 15,000 Niang more than what I had. I don't know if you're aware, but all items sold in the black market have fixed prices. If you're worried about being overcharged, feel free to check with other branches. That was something I already knew. There were 2 reasons why the black market had grown to be the largest among trading places. First, the black market never betrayed its customers. There were never cases of fake goods, customer secrets being leaked, or customer money being stolen. Second was the fixed price system. All branches of the black market across dozens of locations in the Central Plains had the same prices for goods. When prices changed, they changed simultaneously across all branches. While the black market's prices were never cheap, people used it because they believed they wouldn't be overcharged there. This was why the black market had been able to thrive for such a long time. I guess it will sell quickly even if I don't buy it. Probably so. With elixirs, if you couldn't buy them when available, you might not be able to buy them for months or even years. Indeed, as the old man said, it was lucky that the 1000-year broken young herb was available now. But there was nothing I could do. I don't have enough money prepared, so I'll have to wait for next time. As I was about to stand up, the old man asked, "Why do you want to buy an elixir?" "To become stronger, of course." "And once you're stronger?" There were several reasons. I spoke the first one that came to mind. I've been unfilial all my life and only recently matured. So I thought I'd try to be filial. The old man stared at me blankly for a moment, then burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. That's the most absurd thing I've heard in all my years of doing business here. Why is that? Because among all the martial artists who've tried to buy elixirs, there's never been a filial one. I understood what he meant. I had been the same. When obsessed with becoming stronger, one tends to neglect those around them. I had planned to make up for my lack of filial piety to my mother once I became the world's greatest. But my mother didn't wait that long. This life will be different. I intend to take care of everything that shouldn't be missed. It seems I've missed the chance to become the first filial son. Then the old man said something unexpected. "I'll give you 10 days. If you can bring the money within that time, I'll sell it to you." Exactly 10 days. Whether he was reminded of his own parents, or whether he liked my polite manner, he was showing his own form of kindness. Thank you for your consideration. This old man believes that elixirs have their destined owners. Prove it to me. I bowed to him and left. Can I really find an additional 15,000 Nyang within 10 days? Despite my recent positive actions, there was one person in the family whose opinion of me hadn't changed. I don't trust you. It was the chief steward. The same old man who had cursed at me when I woke up. May I ask why? It's intuition, intuition. You'll show your true nature and cause trouble someday. You stubborn old man. Instead of just doubting, try believing when you should. The elders in the Martial Righteous Alliance's Council of Elders were just like this. As greedy as they were suspicious, and just as stubborn. I whispered in his ear. Chief Steward. Do you happen to have any money? The chief steward's eyes widened. His expression seemed to say, see, I told you so. Not a chance as long as I'm alive. He strode away quickly. I smirked as I watched him go. Though he was a stubborn old man, he was also someone essential to the Biok clan sword manor. Especially as a doctor, he possessed quite excellent skills. Anyway, this is a big problem. 3 days had already passed out of the promised 10. Time kept passing, but I had no way to get the money. There was one method. I could go to the young miner faction and squeeze Zhongyou. If I quickly disposed of various things, I might be able to gather about 15,000 Nyang. But if I did that, my relationship with Zhongyou would plummet. He would view me as a leech trying to suck money and harbor other thoughts. Although it's not a small amount, it's too much of a waste to lose trust over 15,000 Nyang. I had planned to use the young miner faction for something bigger. As I was conflicting over this, Guangdu sensed my worry like a ghost. You're worried about something, aren't you? His intuition is almost on par with Gal Sariang. Though he's wrong about the content. You miss Miss Song again, don't you? Even though you said you didn't like her, you still miss her, right? I need some money. Guangdu had already retreated a fair distance. Come on, just when we were getting closer, you asked to borrow money. I haven't asked to borrow yet. I can tell. So how much? All right, I can lend you up to 15 Nyang. But you must pay it back. I need 15,000 Nyang. Gasp! Within 7 days. Guangdu blinked his eyes with an incredulous expression. That's an amount I'd need to be reborn 15 times to earn. And that's only if I wasn't ripped off by a nasty tavern owner. Guangdu sat down next to me. What about the compensation money you brought from the young miner faction? It's not enough. Are you trying to buy an estate or something? I'm trying to buy something more important than that. In my past life, I had never worried about money issues. So I thought that money-related problems might be my weakest point now. I wish there was a sharp young steward around instead of old men like the chief steward. Talking about money reminds me of the past. You caused trouble then too, trying to get money. That's how we ended up in debt to the young miner faction. How on earth did I end up owing 20,000 Nyang? The master cut off your money supply because you kept causing trouble. In the end, you went after a wanted criminal for the bounty, trying to get money, but ended up becoming his hostage. He extorted a large sum from us instead. You really did every foolish thing possible, didn't you? But with martial arts skills in such a state, how did you even think of doing that? It was because you were influenced by Senior Warrior Gong. Senior Warrior Gong. Yes. He's the Martial Righteous Alliance's Chufu branch leader. My heart raced at the mention of the Martial Righteous Alliance. How long had it been since I heard that name? So? What do you mean by being influenced? You started hanging out with him and got ideas about being a righteous hero. Is that so? I felt an inexplicable sense of discomfort. A branch leader of the Martial Righteous Alliance associating with such a good-for-nothing, and a young one at that? What was the state of our family at that time? It was at its lowest point. That incident became the final blow that tipped our fortunes. I see. So this Senior Warrior Gong is the local branch leader. Then who was this wanted man? A man named Guak Dosu, too. He's an evil man who invaded the O family's estate in Shandong, stole their wealth, and massacred the entire family. They say he's committed multiple thefts and murders besides that. I've never heard of him. Well, I suppose I can't know every such person. How much was the bounty set by the Martial Righteous Alliance? It was 5,000 Nyang at the time. 5,000 Nyang means he was classified as an extremely dangerous criminal. And such a person just took the money and let me go? Doesn't that seem strange? Senior warrior Gong mediated. Thanks to that, you saved your life. How did he mediate? I don't know the details. Did Guak Dosu demand as much as 20,000 Nyang? No, it was 15,000 Nyang. I believe 5,000 Nyang was given to senior warrior Gong as a reward for mediating. He took a bribe? We shouldn't call it a bribe. The master gave it to him. Father might give it for saving his son. But a man in public office should refuse. And it didn't seem like father would have offered it first, given his personality. The man probably hinted at wanting money first. After hearing the whole story, I had strong suspicions. This senior warrior Gong might be in cahoots with Guak Dosu. Could they have pulled off a scam together, using the unlimited trust given by the position of a martial righteous alliance branch leader? Exploiting the inevitable parental concern over a child's problem. Has Guak Dosu been caught? I haven't heard any news of his capture yet. Seeing me nod, Guangdu pretended to be startled. Surely you're not thinking of trying to catch him. I have to. Such a trash bastard took 15,000 Nyang from us, we can't just let that go. It's dangerous. He's known to be a truly vicious man. Then lend me all your money first. I'm sure you could catch him, young master. You handled the young minor faction situation so easily, after all. Ha ha ha. Then Guangdu said with a serious face. Then I'll go with you. I can't lend you money, but I'll gladly be your right arm. I understood Guangdu's concern well, and I could have taken him along to give him some experience. But this matter needed to be dealt with quickly and decisively. I had a feeling that if I handled this well, I might be able to solve the money problem while resolving this issue. That right arm is still just for show, so focus on practicing your martial arts diligently. Tell my parents something appropriate. Say I've gone into seclusion for training for a few days. As I left the house, my eyes had turned cold. If those two had colluded to swindle 20,000 Nyang? You better be prepared.